No, I'm saying so. No, Sunday night. Either way, Bez Hashem is going to have to be. My flight is at 1 a.m. here, so that's what time? 7. That'll be 7, right? Because it's only 6-hour difference. Correct?
Sunday is always easier for everybody earlier, I think.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
saying,
a work day.
I'm correct, right? 6 hours it's going to be instead of 7 for the next 2 weeks. The difference.
Changing 1 hour forward. Yes.
They're changing
1 hour forward.
So instead of being 7 hours behind, I'm going to be 6. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
If your flight's at 1 o'clock, it's going to be before that.
It'll be 6 hours ahead. You're 6 hours ahead.
Well, now starting Sunday, Sunday will be 6 hours. Yeah. I figure by the time so figure Sunday will be 6.
Yaakov, I think we start with today's daf, and then we'll worry about each day as we go.
Hey, now you sound like Aaron Horowitz. Okay, thank you.
I did Eli.
I hear you. Okay. Fine.
Way,
so let's
just know my perm was ruined because he wasn't here, but I got video footage. But what he was going on by Mendel and Zevi, we're back to normal.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so let's see the Mishnah. That's what we're up to, right? We got up to the Mishnah. Where are we up to?
The Mishnah.
Right. Okay. So finally, just as doing the preview of the daf. Oh, that's why I'm confused.
Mem Daled.
Well, Mem Daled. One second. Mem Daled or Mem Hey. Oh yeah. I'm using an iPad. Today's daf is Mem Hey. Right, for you, it's yesterday. Okay, that's right. Something was throwing me off. Okay. Yeah, so Zok the Mishnah Mem Daled. So basically the Mishnah now finally brings the basic dinim of Nazir. And what the chumras are and what the kulas are of all the basic 3 dinim, as we know, is no haircuts and can't become tamei, and you can't drink wine. Each one of those has chumras and kulas. So the Amid Aleph is all going to be about the Gemara asking back and forth which chumras and which kulas should apply and which shouldn't apply. Right, and then on Amid Beis, the Gemara is going to discuss the difference between the haircut from when the Nazir is tamei and the haircut from after the Nazir's Nazirus is over, right? There's 2 times a Nazir would need a haircut. One, if he becomes tamei, right? Then he starts the whole Nazirus again, but he has to take a haircut before he starts. And two, he needs in after his standard Nazirus, he needs it. Okay, so that's basically the whole daf is not really a difficult daf. Okay, so talk the Mishnah. So shloisha minan asurin benazir. There's 3. Which is also an interesting choice of words. There's 3 minin, right? There's 3 things that are also for the nazir. Hatuma, v'ataglachas, v'yatzim v'nagefen. Something that's tamei, not something to become tamei, not to shave his head, and anything coming out from grapes. Now the Gemara is going to say, the Mishnah is going to say, what's the difference between them? There's a chumrah of tuma and haircuts more than there is by anything that comes out of grapes. If somebody becomes tamei, or if somebody takes a hair, meaning if the nazir becomes tamei, or the nazir takes a haircut, it stops the count and it has to start again. Right, like we've been saying, if a nazir becomes tamei, he can become tamei on day 29 of a standard 30-day nazirus. He becomes nazir on day 29, and he becomes tamei on day 29. He has to start again. Same thing with a haircut. He has to, if his hair gets shaved on day 29, he's got to start the whole thing again. Right? But if a nazir drinks wine on day 29, then nothing happens to him, and he could just finish his nazirus the next day. Right? But if he eats any grape product, then it's not soiser. With the glachas, there's a chumrah by grape products more than tuma de glachas. There's never a heter. Right? Meaning we said it's a bunch of blot ago that what about kiddush for a nazir? What about havdalah for a nazir? Sheva rochas for a nazir, Yonah de Yaima, whatever. the Sheva Brachas part, Rachamim, not the Nazir part. Although that beard is pretty good, but right. So that's there's no heter. There's no heter whatsoever. The tumah v'tiglachas hutru mechlalim, but tumah and haircuts do have a heter from the klal. Meaning, for tumah, meaning there are ways that you're allowed to. V'tiglachas mitzvah, u'meis mitzvah. By meaning when a nazir is mechuyev to take a haircut, like we learned last, I don't know when it was, a couple of days ago, that if a nazir becomes a mitzayra, he has to shave. Even though he's still a nazir, he still shaves his head, right? And by meis mitzvah, if there's nobody else to bury, so then we allow the nazir to become tamei, right? So you see that there is a heter there. Once in a while, there is a heter for haircuts and tumah, but there's never a heter for great products. The chaymer b'tumah mi'b'tuglachas, and tumah has a chumrah more than haircuts. Shah tumah seiseres as akol. Tumah, when it's seiser, you start the entire naziris again. V'chayav alei carbon, and if you become tamei, if the nazir becomes tamei, he has to bring karbanas. Right? V'tiglachas ain't seiseres ela shleishim. V'tiglachas is not seiser the whole naziris. Right? It's just seiser that he needs to wait 30 days. Like we said, you need to have 30 days of hair growth before he can take the haircut. But there's no chi of carbon, right? So haircuts in that way is not as strict, right? Because a haircut, you don't have to bring another carbon. You just have to wait. You just have to wait for 30 days for the hair growth. That's it. And tumah starts everything from scratch. Okay, so that's the basically given back and forth and the given to take. The give and take is going to be in the Gemara, but what the difference is between haircuts, tumah, and great products. So now the Gemara is going to ask why can't we learn out like from a kal v'chaymer, since each one of these has a chumrah and a kula, right? Sounds more difficult than it really is, but since each one of these has a chumrah and a kula, so therefore you can make kal v'chaymers, but you're going to make kal v'chaymers that go back and forth and tell you opposite things, right? Let's see how that works. So the Gemara says, "V'tuma loy susa miklala," but tamei should not be a heter from the klal. Meaning, we said that by great products, there's never a heter, right? If you could have a mitzvah d'oraisa to drink dalit kaises, like we said, a nazir can't do it. Right? He can't have grape juice and he can't have wine, anything like that. Oh, it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, right? Doesn't make a difference. Nazir, he's not allowed to do it. Mashenkin by tumah, there is a heter for meis mitzvah, and for haircuts, there's a heter if the guy became a mitzvah. So the Gemara is asking, why don't we say that should not be allowed to become tamei? Kal v'chaymer yayin as a kal v'chaymer wine, right? And then it's pashut. My yayin she'ein seiser. Wine that's not seiser, right? We said that wine you could drink all you want. The nazir can drink all he wants. He does not have to start his naziris again. I mean, he's not getting the Tzaddik of the Year award because he's going to be over on a Isser, but he doesn't have to start the naziris again. But in loyhutim mechlali, and we never allow it, right? So wine, which has a kula, that he doesn't have to start his naziris again, but it has a chumrah that it's never mutter. So tumah sheseiseres, tumah which is saisa, because if a nazir becomes tamei, he has to start the whole thing again. So it's a kal v'chaymer, and addition like does the mechlali. You should never allow it, even in meis mitzvah case. So when it answers, they can't have the kal v'chaymer because there's a pasuk that says tam lo avivu li mai lo yitama. He does not become tamei to his father and to his mother. Lo avivu li lo yitama. He doesn't become tamei to his father and his mother, but he does become tamei to a meis mitzvah. So you see that you can't learn out the kal v'chaymer. Meaning the kal v'chaymer theoretically would be good, but we have psukim to tell you otherwise. Right? It says a nazir can't become tamei to his father and mother, but that means there is somebody that he could become tamei to. Otherwise, the pasuk is just saying nazir can't become tamei. So who is that? So it's me a meis mitzvah. Okay, so then the Gemara asks the opposite. Wine, we should be miklali. Meaning, why don't we allow wine for a Nazir when it's a mitzvah, let's say for Pesach of a Kiddush, Kal v'chomer Tuma. We should learn a Kal v'chomer Tuma. Ma Tuma she Seiseres. Tuma is Seiser and knocks off the whole Naziros. Putrim Miklala, we matter it from its klal. Yayin shein a Seiser, wine that's not Seiser, ain't a din sheyutim Miklala. Is it not a Kal v'chomer that we should matter it from the klal, right? Right, it's just the opposite. That wine, I'm sorry, but Tuma, that Seiser starts the whole Naziris, but it's Huta Miklala, right? We do allow it sometimes. So wine that's not Seiser, which means it's Chomer, shouldn't be a Kal v'chomer that we should be materit when it's necessary. So again, the Gemara says, no, we have a pasuk. He becomes a Nazir from wine, and again, we don't touch shecher as beer, we touch it as old wine. Lesser yayin, mitzvah ke yayin rishus. That pasuk's telling you that no, even though you have a kal v'chomer that should tell you that wine should be mutter, but we say that it's still also because of the pasuk. Fine. Then the Gemara says, okay, if a yayin yisteres hakol, right? Then wine should be seiser all the days of the Nazir. Why again a kal v'chomer and kal v'chomer mituma? Ma tuma shehutru miklala seiseres hakol. Tuma that has a leniency that Tuma has a leniency that there's a heter sometimes or a meis mitzvah, but it has a chumrah that you have to start again if you become tamei. So yayin shaloyotem miklala. So yayin which never becomes mutter, even under circumstances where you need to have wine like kol sheken sheyista, shouldn't be a kal v'chomer that it should knock everything off. So Magrava Yom Harishanim Yiplu Kitame Nizre. It says the first days are going to fall away because he became Tame. Tuma Seiseres. So clearly it says the Yom Rishonim fall Ki Tame. The first days fall away, meaning are negated because Tame Nizre. Tuma Seiseres and Ayayin Seiser. Tuma is Seiser and wine is not Seiser. Fine. So the Gemara asks, so haircuts should be Seiser everything. So Tuma, see now we have a different Chumrah that the Mishnah does not discuss. So Tuma does not make the Matama be over on the Isser. Meaning, a guy, let's say a Nazir sitting in a house, and a guy that brings in the mace to the house, right? Did he do anything wrong? Again, he's not getting the Tzaddik of the Year award, right? But did he do anything wrong? He's not over on anything, right? So Tuma shaloi also mitame kim mitame. If we don't make the person who made the Nazir Tameh, we don't make him be over on the Isser like the guy who became Tameh, meaning the guy who made himself Tameh, like the Nazir. Meaning the Nazir walks into a funeral home, he's going to be Chayim Malkus if he does it when he was born. Right? But if the funeral home brings the mace into the Nazir's house, they're not getting Malkus. Right? But so it has a kula, yet if a guy becomes tummy, he knocks off everything. So tiglachas, but hair cutting, who the person who gives the haircut or the shave of the head to the Nazir is over on an Isser, right? Even though he didn't do anything, he didn't, meaning he did something wrong, but it's not to himself. But he's over, and it then should tister as the call. Isn't it a kal v'chomer that you should be seiser everything, right? Meaning somebody who gives a haircut will to the Nazir will be over an Isser, right? This is why if you're a barber or if you're giving a haircut, you got to be careful with the surim that a person has to be careful. It's not just on the recipient; it's also on the one giving the haircut. That's why we said once that a person should, if a guy has to shave for a heter, meaning he should use a lady to shave him with a razor. We're talking about, then he should use a lady to do it as opposed to a man. Because a woman is not over on the issur of shaving anybody, because she's not over on the issur to she can shave herself, so she's allowed to shave others, right? So whatever it is, you see that it should be a kal v'chomer. Again, Tuma, who has a kula, that the guy who makes the nazir tamei did not over on anything, but Tuma knocks off the entire nazirus and he has to start again. So shaving the head, where the person who shaved is over on an issa, isn't it a kal v'chomer that it should be size of everything? So Makra, Pasuk says, "Vayamim harishonim yiplu," the kitame nizrei, that the first days fall away because he's a tame. His nazirus became tame. Did I do that just now? No, I think I lost it. Right. There was the pasuk we said before. Vayamim harishonim yiplu kitame nizrei. Tumas seseres is a kol. Veintiglachas seseres is a kol. Right. Same pasuk as before. That no, we have a pasuk that says that tame is the only thing that knocks off the entire nazirus and starts it again, but haircuts do not. Okay, so what it says, "V'tuma nasa but metame kimetame." Why don't we make a different kal v'chomer and say that let the person who makes the nazir tame be over on an isser, just like if the nazir himself makes himself tame. Kal v'chomer l'tiglachas, it's a kal v'chomer from the shaving. U'ma tiglachas she'enes iseres ela shloishim. So haircuts, is only sizer 30 days, but nothing else. He doesn't have to bring the carbon if he takes a haircut. Also, but it makes the person who gives the haircut as if he was the one who took the haircut and he's over an isser. So Tuma, she says, this is a called Tuma, which is sizer everything. Isn't it a kal v'chomer that it's going to make that the person who makes him tummy should have a din like if the nazir made himself tummy, right? It's a basic kal v'chomer. So Makrav tummy roish nizroi. It says that he's going to be matama his head, meaning his nazir head. The matama roish nizroi. It's only somebody who is matama the head of the nazirus, but not stam somebody who makes a tummy, which again becomes an interesting choice of words, because metame roish nizroi means you shave the head of a nazir. Right? You really have to use the word metame there, right? Because we're saying that the guy that makes him actually tame is not over on Issa. If the guy gives him a haircut, he is over on Issa, right? But that's okay. It's calling him metame, but metame here obviously doesn't mean to make him tame. Metame here means that he's making him into he shaved him. Okay, so again, it's the same thing. We're trying to say all these kal v'chomers back and forth, and Psukim tell us not to say the kal v'chomer. Fine, and then we're asked, so let's go the opposite way. Why don't we say that the guy who gives the nazir the haircut should not be over on an isser, right? Kal v'chomer tuma, right? Let's take the opposite. Tuma, she says there's a call tuma, which has a kula. I'm sorry, but that has a chumrah. It does not, as a chumrah that you have to restart the whole nazirus. And with loy it does not make the person who makes the nazir tameh like if the nazir himself becomes tameh. So tiglachas she'enes iseres ela shloshim yom, but shaving, which is only size of the 30 days, but he doesn't have to start again with a carbon. So that shouldn't be a kal v'chomer, that it has that he should not be mechayev. The person who gives the haircut should not be chayev for giving the haircut to the nazir. So when it says Amakro tar lo yavar al reishoy, it says he should not put a razor on his head. Karibe lo yavar hu v'lo yavar la'acher means that he cannot use a razor, and he also should not use a razor on somebody else. Right? Meaning it says tar lo yavar al reishoy. It says a razor should not go on his head. It doesn't say who's doing the shaving. It could be himself, or it could be somebody else. Whoever put the razor over the nazir's head is the one that's doing something wrong. Fine. So then when it says v'tiglachas like tutza miklala, why don't we say that tiglachas should never be mutter, meaning from mitzayra? If the nazir becomes a mitzayra, he's allowed to shave, right? Because the mitzayra has to shave after a week or whenever he becomes tar. So that haircut should not be allowed. Kal v'chomer yayin. That's a kal v'chomer for one. Am I yayin she'enes sizer yayin, which doesn't knock off all the days, lo yoter miklala, but we don't allow it from its rule. Tiglachas tzeres, and eventually doesn't miklala. So then tiglachas, that the haircut that does require him to start 30 days again, is in a kavachayim that we shouldn't be matir it from its rule and don't allow haircuts when he's a mitzvah. So Amar Rachmana, Roy Shoy. Amar Rachmana, Zikonoi, which we had this 3 days ago, blah, that the pasuk Roy Shoy and Zikonoi, depending on which opinion you go with, tells you that a Nazir does have to shave when he's mitzvah. Right? But yes, theoretically, he shouldn't because of the kavachayim. So then what it says with the glachas, lois tistor klal, so maybe haircuts shouldn't be sizer at all. Meaning, even if the Nazir takes a haircut, he shouldn't have to start again. Kavachayim reyayin is a kavachayim reyayin. Am I yayin? Shaloi hutim miklaloi ain't a sizer. So yayin that does not become mutter from its rule, meaning we never allow wine, but it doesn't make you start again 30 days if he drinks wine. So teglacha shutim miklala, but a haircut which we're going to allow when he's a Nazir, ain't a din shaloi tistor isn't a kavachayim that it shouldn't be sizer. Right. So what it says, being in Gidel Seir, you need the hair to grow. Right. We said this also last week. You need the hair to grow for 30 days before you shave it. For Halekha, and he doesn't have it because he took a haircut. Right. You need 30 days from the last shaving. Fine. The last one. The yayin yista shloishim yayin. How about if he drinks wine? It should be sized to the 30 days. Kavachayim mit glachas. It's a kavachayim from shaving. So teglachas, which has a kula, because you're allowed to shave for, there's always a rule, you're bending the rule, which is by if the Nazir becomes a mitzayra. But it's sizer all 30 days. So yayin shaloyotim wine, which is not put from klal, so as a chumrah, because wine we never allow. Ain't a din sheyista, so that should be a kavachayim, that it should knock off the 30 days and you should have to start again. So when it answers, maybe you do a timer, isn't the whole reason that you have to start the counting again is because of growing the hair. So by wine, right, his hair was still there, right? Meaning the reason why a Nazir has to start for the haircuts again is because there's a pasuk that says he needs 30 days of growth, right? That doesn't translate into wine. We need to have 30 days without wine. That it doesn't say, right? So therefore, that's the pasuk that tells you that only haircuts requires a 30-day restart, and wine does not. Okay, that was for a million kavacharas back and forth. That Gemara is relatively simple. I think.
So
Right? It goes pretty
this
fast.
last one.
L'chaim. Yeah.
Why don't we use a memo from Toma and Tiglachas to Yayin? The Yayin should be sized.
You want to use a mamatzinu?
Yeah, use Kalachim for both. So fine, the Gidel Sayer you don't need by wine. You have the same points by Tuma.
Time it's a pasuk. Each time the pasuk is sizer.
You explain. You're answering, or you're explaining his question?
Let me see.
I mean, you want to say from Mehmet? I don't know. I think what Rachamim is saying is you have psukim to tell you otherwise.
Then what's the concept? The concept is we should have a Kalachim to tell us against the pasuk.
Yeah. I'm in a better picture.
Simultaneous is the Kalachim from two places. The Kalachim requires not against the pasuk. We should have a Kalachim that teaches us that drinking wine would be sizer than a Nazirus. Right? I'm just saying that. Okay, so fine. You can't learn that from Gidel Sar because you need Gidel Sar. Gidel Sar is a steer to not having Sar.
Right. Okay, I hear.
Have that from Tuma. You can make the same exact Kalachaimer from Tuma.
Right. I hear you. Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, listen. I wish I would understood how Memetzinus and Kalvachaimers and all that work, and when it doesn't work. But, yeah. It's funny you say that because now you got me like there's a guy in the Stiebelach where I daven. The Gabbai walks in. You know, he's got a million rooms. So how does he get the minyan rolling? He walks in, and Baal Peh says over the entire Rabbi Shmuel, while he's walking around collecting tzedakah, setting things up so that he can get the minyan moving. I was like, wow, this guy knows the whole Rabbi Shmuel Baal Peh. Sheesh. He's like such Shalisha Zadas. Telling this guy that he knows all the 13 libudim Baal Peh. He must have an easy time learning Gemara. I don't even know them when I read them inside. I don't even understand them. Right? But anyway, yeah. Okay, so on Talmud Beis.
1 second. So Yaakov, that's because he grew up in Shayashim. We didn't say Rabbi Shmuel. It's not a Mizmor Shir.
I wonder, but it could be. Yeah. But at least he's saying I grew up, so that's good.
One second. Doesn't Shasha start at Baruch Shama?
I don't
Yeah,
say Mizmor Shir either.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Really
officially,
start Baruch
yeah.
Shama.
Naftali, where were you exactly a minute ago?
My house?
I don't get it.
All right, Naftali.
I don't get it.
Isn't Aaron Kaplan just said a minute ago?
No, he said Mizmor Shir.
He's doing me a share. I said Baruch Shama. That's what I was correcting on
You gotta be medayik.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, on Talmud Beis, it's up to Mishnah. Now we're back into Tumah. For those that missed Tumah and Tara.
Well, because nobody wants to hear Liner say an extra Kaddish. Really, the Jews started from his machine, but he started Baruch Shemer. Nobody corrected him.
That could be. Yeah. Fine. Okay, Zok the Mishnah. Tiglachas Tumah Ketzad. How do you go about doing the haircut if the Nazir became Tummy? Right? So Yamazah b'shlishi b'shvi. So basically what happens, it became tummy. So somebody becomes tummy, needs to wait a week, and he needs the para aduma, right? This week's parsha, right? This week's parsha is para. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's parsha's para, right? So you need to take the ashes from the para aduma, mix it together with water, with all that stuff, and you have to put it on him on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Then he goes to the mikvah on the 7th day. And then he needs Herav Shemesh that evening. And the next day, that night he becomes tar. Right? But the only thing is, that's a regular standard person who becomes tummy mace. But a Nazir has an additional thing where he has to bring a carbon the next day. Right? So let's see. So Tiglachas Tumah Ketza. Well, how does he go about with the haircuts of if a Nazir became tummy? So he sprinkles on the 3rd and the 7th day, which is standard. Now, because he became Tameh, he has to shave his head. Maybe Karbonaisa b'shmini, and then he brings his Karbonas on the 8th day. Right? That's the standard. Gilach b'shmini. But let's say for whatever reason, he didn't take the haircut on the 7th day. He took the haircut on the 8th day. Still, maybe Karbonaisa by Bayon. He could bring his Karbonas that day. Right? Even though his Tahara process was not fully done. Meaning normally, the day he becomes tahar, right? So then he becomes tameh. He brings the karbanas the next day. Right? But here we're saying that if he took the haircut for whatever reason on the 8th day, he could still bring his karbanas that day. Reb Tarfon doesn't like that. Why is that different than a mitzayra? Because a mitzayra who shaves the whole body, right, on the 7th day of Tzaras, he shaves the whole body. Right? Then he brings his karbonos the next day. So a Matzayra, if for whatever reason didn't shave his body that day, and he shaves his body on the 8th day, a Matzayra, it's very clear in the Psukim that he brings the karbonos on the 9th day, not on the 8th day. Meaning, according to by Matzayra, he cannot bring the carbon on the same day as his haircut. By Nazir, Rebbe Kiva is saying yes. So Rebbe Tarfon is asking Rebbe Kiva, what's the difference? Amalei, so Rebbe Kiva said back to him, said Tarasa Tluya B'Yama. A Nazir is totally in his days. He needs 7 days. And he had that. But a Mitzayra, you can't say it doesn't have to do with days because he does have to wait 7 days. Right? But his Tahara is totally very much in his shaving his whole body. maybe carbon, and we know that the normal rule is that you cannot bring a carbon until Herav Shemesh, till the sun sets on the day that you had your tahara, right? So a Nazir had his tahara on day 7 because that's the main thing. He needs to wait 7 days, right? But a Mitzayra, his main thing is not the 7 days. His main thing is that he has to shave his body. So since the main thing is that he shaves his body, so therefore he needs to wait Herav Shemesh, so then he has to push it off from the 8th day to the 9th day. Again, it's very, very simple. By Nazir, if whatever, even as long as he's on the 8th day, even if he shaves on the 8th day, he could bring his korbanos that day because his main tahara was that he waited 7 days. All right, so then that he has.
Aren't they both mechusa kapara at that point? If they didn't bring the korban, that's still called mechusa kapara.
It is mechusa kapara, but he could, for the glachas is not the main kapara. So since the glachas is not the main kapara, if for whatever reason his haircut got pushed off till the 8th day, so he's allowed to, right? But Mitzayra, since the main tahara is taking the haircut, therefore he takes the haircut on day 8. He cannot bring the korbanos that day. Fine, but the thing is a very interesting shakla v'tari here in the Mishnah, because Rabbi Kiva said a din, Reb Tarfon asked him a kasha, and then the Mishnah is over, right? So does that mean Rabbi Kiva agreed? Or do we say that he did not, or did he just not, the Mishnah just didn't say his answer? So Gemara asks, Kibla mina ilai. Was he makabel from him or was he not makabel from him? So Gemara answers, Tashema, the Tani Hillel, because Hillel learned, Gilach Bishmini, if he takes a haircut on the 8th day, maybe Korbanos B'chi, then the Nazir has to bring his Korbanos on the 9th day, not the 8th day, like Rabbi Kiva said. Right? Rabbi Kiva had said that if for whatever reason the haircut got pushed off for the Nazir, then he can still bring his Korbanos that day. And here you see that Hillel says, no, if he takes his haircut on the 8th day, then he pushes it off to the 9th day. And if you say that he was makabel from him, then he should bring the korbanos on the 8th day. If Reb Tarfon was right, then he should bring, if Rabbi Kiva was right, then he should bring his korbanos on the 8th day. Elamai, Hillel saying not, so therefore must be that Reb Tarfon was correct. So, and even though the Mishnah doesn't say Rabbi Kiva agreed with him, but that must have been what happened. So Gemara says, no, it's not necessarily true. Amar Rava like kasha, it's not necessarily a kasha, right? Maybe the difference in those cases is whether he also went to the mikveh, not also, but whether he went to the mikveh on the 7th day or not. Meaning maybe Hillel's case is talking about where he didn't go to the mikveh on the 8th day, on the 7th day. So therefore he has to push it off till the day after the mikveh. Masha Enkein, the Ar Mishnah, where Rabbi Kiva is talking about where he did go to the mikveh on the 7th day. So therefore he could bring his karbanos on the 8th day, even if he took a haircut on the 8th day. Okay, so it's inconclusive. We don't know. The Gemara doesn't leave off with any final psak here. Fine. Now the Gemara gets involved in a little bit of a technical Tuma and Tara Tuma issue, which is basically that when somebody's Tame, he's not allowed to go into the Beis HaMikdash, obviously, right? But there's a few different sections of the Beis HaMikdash, right? You have the actual, it's not the Beis HaMikdash, it's the, what's it called? The Mishkan. You have the actual Mishkan, right? And then around the Mishkan, you had where the Levim and Kehanim lived, which was a less Kedusha than the Mishkan, and then but more Kedusha than the third, which is where the Yisraelim lived. So basically it was three rings. Right? The outer ring was where the Yisraelim lived. That had the least Kedusha. Then you had the second ring where the Levim and Kehanim lived. And then you had the middle ring, which was obviously the Mishkan, which is the most Kaddish. Right? But also in the Beis HaMikdash, they basically had, it became the Beis HaMikdash, the Harabayis, and then the actual Yerushalayim. Right? So Yerushalayim was the equivalent of the Machane Leviyah. the Beis Hamikdash was obviously the equivalent of the actual Mishkan, and the rest of the world was for Yisrael. Right now, depending on which type of Tumah, it was totally in how far you could go. A Mitzrayah had to leave everything. Right? A Mitzrayah had to go totally out of there. A Zav was allowed in Yerushalayim. Right? A Zav is who has something wrong. They say gonorrhea, but we don't know exactly. A Zav can be in Yerushalayim, but can't go into can't go to the Beis Hamikdash or into the Harabayis and the Beis Hamikdash, right? And somebody who's Tamei Meis can go up till the Harabayis, which is what the Gemara is going to discuss is the Shar Nikanor. Up till there he could go. After that he can't go. Right? So those are the basic things. Did I say it? Yeah, okay, right. So again, there's three levels, but there's a mikdash. There's the actual Beis Hamikdash, there's the Harabayis, and then there's Yerushalayim. Right? And I think the rest of the world. Fine. So that's what the Gemara says. So Amar Abai, that's a hakdama to the Gemara. So Amar Abai. Oh, then one other thing. A Zav, we have this many times, right? That a Zav, there's two types of Zavs. There's a Zav who sees once, and he becomes tummy for that day, and that's it. If a Zav sees twice, then twice in a day, then he becomes tummy for a week. But he just needs Shiva Nikiyim, 7 clean days, then he becomes tar. If he sees 3 times, right, up until 3 consecutive days, right? It's 3 consecutive days is up. You have 3 days for that, I think. A little hard, I'm not remembering. But then once he has 3 times, then he has Shiva Nikiyim and he has to bring Karbonos.
Didn't we have a whole cheshbon how it was really more days because the 3 days? I don't remember.
Right. 1 second.
There was some whole cheshbon.
Yeah. Right. Also, right. If a man sees twice in 2 days, then he becomes a zav. Then he needs 7 clean days. But if he sees 3 times in 1 day, or within 3 days, right? If he sees 3 times within 3 days, then he has to bring a carbon too. Right? That's what it is. So again, a zav sees once, he's tummy for that day. He sees twice on 2 days, or obviously twice on 1 day, he needs 7 clean days. If he sees 3 times within 3 days, then he needs 7 clean days and a carbon. Right? Fine. So that's basic din of zav. So let's see the Gemara. I found the friends of Rav Nosson Bar Hoshia that they were sitting and they said, he comes in front of Hashem to the Pesach of the Oyel Moed. Again, this is talking about the Mishkan. So he comes in front of Hashem to the opening of the Oyel Moed, and then he gives the Karbanos to the Kayin. So what do you learn out from this pasuk? When could he come into where? He has to be able to come into the place where the Kehanim go to, right? Otherwise, how's he bringing on the carbon? Bisman shehu toval v'asa herav shemesh. That he can bring it once he tovel himself and he had herav shemesh, meaning on the 7th day. So I'm sorry, I left off one word. Bisman shehu toval v'asa herav shemesh in only when he was tovel himself and he had shkia, then he could bring his korbanos to the kohen. Loi toval v'asa herav shemesh loi. But if he didn't tovel himself and then memela have shkia after he ties himself, then he's not allowed to. Fine. So alma kasavar tful yom shel zav kazav dami. That somebody who's a tful yom is what the person is called when he toiled that day, but he still needs to wait for shkia. So we see that guy cannot, if he's toiled that day, right? But tful yom shel zav kazav, the tful yom of a zav is like a mamash, a regular zav, and that he can't go into the Machan Leviyah, right? Until the next day, because he needs Herav Shemesh. So that's basically what they're saying. That again, a zav who was toivel still cannot go into the Kayin and Levi section of the Machana, because
Why would we think they are allowed?
what?
What's the Hava meaning to say they are allowed?
No, but meaning because he's not as a full Yom, meaning he was already Toivel. Should at least he was Tahar, so maybe he should be able to go into the Machana Leviyah, even though he doesn't have Sharav Shemesh. Right? Meaning they're saying that there's no difference between a Zav who saw twice, they both need Shiva Nekiyim. A Zav who saw twice and a Zav who saw 3 times both need Shiva Nekiyim. But the one who saw 3 times needs to bring a korban. So they're saying that there's no difference. Right? So Memela, meaning he's not the guy who's only saw twice and has toivel himself on the 7th day. All he needs is Hara Shemesh. He's good to go. He's not bringing a korban. Right? So maybe after he toiveled, he should be able to go in further. But we're saying no, he cannot. Right? Just like the guy the Zav who needs to bring the korban the next day can't. He's basically saying the same. It's the same din. So that's what they had said. That's what the friends of who was it? From Nazir Ma'ashia said. So then he says back to him, Aminu lo anos. I said to them, if that's the case, Elamiata Gabi Nazir Tamei Name. The pasuk uses. I don't know if it's similar terminology, but Gabi Nazir Tamei Name Tichsev Vehevi Osam, or whether you got that or not is because it's not necessary, right? El Kohen El Pesach Oyel Moed. He brings the karbonos, right? I mean, the pasuk says it. That's not the question. The question is whether the Gemara has to quote it, right? He brings them to the Kohen, to the Pesach Oyel Moed. That's where the Nazir brings his karbonos. Eimasai Hu Ba. When can he come to bring the karbonos? When could the Nazir come to bring the karbonos to the Kohen? Is Macha Tova Vasa Herav Shemesh. When he toiveled himself and he had Herav Shemesh. Is that what you're saying? Right? Because again, we said in the case of Zav that we're saying that when he brings it, it means he was toivel and he had Herav Shemesh. If that's the case, Michti on top of Aleph now, Michti, Shari Nikanor Hecha Kaiman. Where were the Shari Nikanor? Right? Shari Nikanor is the gates of the Beis Hamikdash. Where were they? B'Shari Leviah. They were obviously they were in the Levi section.
We went through all this sugya with the Shari Nikanor.
What?
We had it in Yuma, no? Wasn't it Yuma?
Oh, it could be. I have no recollection, but it could be.
I think it was Yuma.
We had it. If I'm a betting man, I would say it's Yuma. Yeah.
I think this was, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. They did something over there.
Yom Nikanor was 2 days ago.
The who?
Gershon, you always have to make us look bad, Gershon. It's one thing when we said Yuma. We have to throw in that it was yesterday also.
2 days ago with what?
No, we didn't have it. Yom Nikanor.
He's referring to Purim. He's referring to
Yud
Purim.
Gimel Adar. Yud Gimel Adar is Yom Nikanor.
Oh.
Is what?
What's it?
I don't understand. I can't hear him clear. What? I'm not getting it. Okay, sorry. But anyways, but the bottom line is, where's the Shar Nikanor? It's obviously in the section of the Kohanim and Leviim, right? Because that's what separates between the Beis Hamikdash and Kohanim and Leviim. For Tanya, right? But we learned that the Brayso Tamei Mace Mutuli Konas Machna Leviim. We said that a Tamei Mace could go in Machna Leviim. But like Tamei Mace Mavad, Elafilu Mace Atzmoi. Even the actual dead body can come into the Machna Leviim. Remember, Yikach Moshe's Atzmas Yosef Imoi. And Moshe took Yosef's bones with him, right? Ma imoi b'mechitzasai. It means imoi with him in his mechitza, meaning mamish with Moshe Rabbeinu. Imoi b'machana leviah. He carried Yosef's bones in the machana leviah. So clearly, a mace is allowed to go in machana leviah. So if an actual mace can go in machana leviah, then for sure a zav, right, can be able to come in there. Right, certainly a zav who was toivel already, right? So he's saying it can't be that dig was correct. Fine. Elo Amar Abaya. So okay, so then how do you understand what's going on? So Tful Yaim Shel Zav Kizav Dami. the full yom of a zav is like a zav, meaning a zav who toiveled himself on the 7th day. Right? Now, it's a little bit of a kirsa issue here because Tais and the Rosh stick in the word ain. Right? Tful yom shel zav, the tful yom of a zav is not like a zav. Vafilu hachi, kivan the mechusar kapara loy ayel. Bottom line is, since he mechusar kapara, he didn't bring the karbanas, he's not allowed to come into the Machane Leviyah. Right? So he's saying the brisa, right? What are you doing with the brisa? Bottom line is Abai has a good kasha. If an actual mace is allowed to come into Machane Leviyah, so kol shekain, somebody who's tumazav. So then how do you understand it? So what it means is, if you're talking about a zav who was actually tamei from 3 times, and he has to bring a carbon, right? So he is really a tful yaim because he was toivel on the 7th day, but he needs to bring karbonos on the 8th day, right? So even though he was toivel, he needs 2 things till he becomes tar. He needs shkia, and he needs to bring karbonos. Never mela, he's not allowed to go into the Machane Leviyah, right? But after shkia, when all he needs is 1 thing to become tar, which is the karbonos, then he's allowed to. But a zav who only saw twice, so after he's toivel on his 7th day, he's only missing 1 thing to become tar, which is that he needs shkia. So Mamela, he is allowed to become, he's allowed to go into the Harabaya. So basically, Abai is saying that there is a difference between a zav who saw 2 times and a zav that saw 3 times, right? So now what's a pshavi Machane Leviyah koi? Right? If he's allowed to stay in Machane Leviyah, a Maika Kari like Oyel Mayid, right? Why is it called Oyel Mayid? The Memra, right? Why is it calling it Oyel Mayid? Ma Hasam Mechusar Kapara Loy Ayel, just like by the Oyel Mayid. A Mechusar Kapara is not allowed to go in. So after Machane Leviyah, now me Mechusar Kapara Loy Ayel. So therefore, even by Machane Leviyah, somebody who's missing kapara can't go in. Fine, and how do you know that somebody who's mechusar kapara, who's waiting for karbonas, does not go into the Machane Leviyah? The Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa, Tomei, it says he should become Tomei. The rabbi is Tful Yom. It comes to include somebody who's a Tful Yom, that he's still Tomei. Oy Tumasai Boy, the rabbi is mechusar kapara. It's coming to tell you that even if a guy was tar and he had Erev Shemesh, still because he's mechusar kapara, he's not allowed to go. He's not allowed to go into the chatzar of the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah. Okay. So basically, it's coming out according to Abaya that there is a difference between a zav and a zav that has 2 riyas. After he's toivels, is much more makel, and then a zav who had 3 riyas. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop over there. Everybody should have themselves a fine night.
See, Chusa Kapara is a shtickle, still tame. It's like there's still a shemitz tuma there because it's not cleaned up. He's allowed to bring the korban. He's still, but he's the fact that he's Chusa Kapara leaves him
Right.
a little bit of tum because he's restricted. The tumah doesn't just mean that he's tumah is more complicated. It's more complicated. It can still, it's not a tumah that you can touch, obviously, but it's still, there's a mahus there because he's chaser kapara. You don't call him tummy, but he's not totally tar either.
Right, that's true. So he's in no man's land, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
you can hear me now.
I hear you now.
What was the limit from Oyel Mayid?
Who?
Last thing, the second to last thing you said. Said by Oyel Mayid, the tummy can't go in, so Machane Leviyah also. What was that limit?
What do you mean that he could go into Machane Leviyah?
I didn't hear it properly. Well, the Gemara, the second to last limit in the Gemara. So the Gemara, the Torah calls it Oyel Mayit. Well, something about Oyel Mayit.
What do you mean? Because Oyel Mayid. Yeah, I don't understand. What are you saying?
I'm not asking anything. I just, if you could you repeat the last two lines? Something about Oyel Mayit.
Right.
I didn't hear the Gemara. What did the Gemara say?
No, hold on a second. We're saying the Oyel Mayid is the meaning Machane Leviyah is, why is it called Pesach Oyel Mayid? That's the question. Why is it calling Machane Leviyah Pesach Oyel Mayid?
Okay. So why? What does the Gemara say?
What do you mean? You want me to read you the Gemara?
Yeah, that line. I think I misunderstood.
Remember, meaning why is it called the Oyel Mayid? Remember, Ma Hasan B'Chusu Kapara Loy Ayil. It's telling you that just like normally to the Oyel Mayid, a B'Chusu Kapara can't go in, right? Even though he's already titled.
Even kind of Levi.
What?
Levi can't go into an Oyel Mayid. It's the Oyel Mayid. Only the Kohen.
No, but it's what?
Only a Kohen doing a Baita can go into the Oyel Mayid.
Right, but it's referring. That's what it's calling it Oyel Mayid, right?
Yeah, but the limit is a half a limit. You're gonna say, I'm can't go into the Oyel Mayid. The same limit would apply.
No, it's not referring to the. It's not referring to the Oyel Mayid. It's referring to the Oyel Mayid that's in the Machane Leviyah.
So because
right?
So we're using it as a limit, even a halfway limit, because there has to be a reason it uses that term here.
Right.
I hear. Okay. I misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. I gotta go daven. Fine.
All right.
Okay. Drive safe wherever you drive. Driving back to Cleveland.
Yeah.